My name is Suzanne Hoffman and I am the Superintendent of Schools here in Vancouver. Today is Friday and it is August the 28th. I'd like to begin by hoping that all of you had a wonderful summer, that you were able to find time with family and friends and enjoy this amazing place in which we live. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the troubling times in which we find ourselves in with the societal issues of racism. And I want to acknowledge that we are here to support those that are impacted, and we will listen and we will learn and we will work together to make things the very best that we can for all within our community. More video messages. The intention of these messages is to communicate, is to share at a high level information that you need to hear, and to share what those emerging issues might be that are going to impact you as families and the return to school. Our ongoing priorities have been these four things from the spring, and they continue into the fall as we look to reopen our schools. Health and safety is the number one priority, and everything that we have done to put plans in place has that top of mind. We also look to make connections for students or children with our schools and with their teachers, and we also look to communicate in an ongoing way as transparently and as quickly as we can. And then also the piece around learning for our students. We want them to have an incredibly successful school year. So where are we as of today? I'd like to pause and acknowledge the coming together of many people over the past few weeks. Thank you to our DPAC and the executive for their feedback and the collaborative work that we have been doing together. I very much appreciate their time. The unions, our teachers' unions and our support staff unions have been in conversation with us as we look to put our plans safely in place for our staff and for our students. And our principals and our vice principals have done an extraordinary job of working and planning and being very thoughtful about what it is that we need to do the very best we can in a safe way for your children. It has been such a great team effort, and I'm incredibly thankful. There are two parts to this video. The first part will give you an update on our secondary schools, and the second part will give you an update on where we are at with our elementary school planning. So with secondary, this past week you have received a letter from your schools that has the following content on it, and we are giving you now the details of what school will look like for our secondary students as they return. And what our secondary families should expect is a letter home from your principal next week with more detail and more clarity on a site-by-site, school-by-school basis as to what programming will look like and what the schedules will be for your children. So please watch for that, and also look at our website, your school website, social media. We will endeavor to communicate in as many ways as possible. The work has been ongoing and the work is continuing. Our counselors, our teachers, our support staff will start to return to schools, and will really refine the plans that we have in an effort to have an incredibly successful school startup. In our elementary schools, this past week we undertook a survey. We needed to reach out to you as families to hear what you are thinking about your children in our K-7 system. We wanted to know whether you plan to return to school, were you contemplating homeschooling or distributed learning, or were you interested in a transition model, something that has students gradually return to our elementary schools. So thank you to the 21,000 respondents that took part in our survey and provided us with information. And approximately 28% of you indicated that you were interested in a transition model. And we acknowledge that there wasn't a lot of specificity around what that might be, because we needed to know the scope or how many of you might be interested in that before we could get into the details of what the plans would be. So what we are doing now is we are looking at the information we got. The survey closed last night. So we are analyzing on a school-by-school basis, and we will be sharing out that information. We are looking to create more communication tools for our elementary families. We also know that we need to provide clarity on what that program will look like, and also how to register for that if that is something that you are choosing to do, rather than having your child return full-time for the September startup, which a majority of our families have indicated they would like to do. So we will look to communicate with you again next week, early next week, so that you know what it is that we are thinking about. And again, work has been happening over the past few weeks. It continues in our school. Our support staff start to arrive in offices next week. Our administrators are there, and teachers will also eventually be starting to come back in as they look to plan around the health and safety and what learning will look like for your children. I would like to acknowledge that while we have those plans in place, that we are very mindful of our community, and that we will reach out specifically to our Indigenous families, to our BIPOC community, with things that are happening to ensure that we are making the connections we need to make, looking at reaching out directly to our parents and our families who have children with unique needs that we are able to program for, and then our English language learners. So there will be individual reach outs in many cases, ensuring that we reach all of our families about the return to school and what that will look like for them. So next week, yes, we will have more communications coming out to you, and I encourage you again to go to our website, follow us, our social media channels will provide you with additional information. And I know we have a DPAC open house this week, and I look forward to answering many questions at that particular event scheduled for the upcoming week. To wrap up, again, I acknowledge the complexities of these times, whether it is COVID related and some of you that have worries and fears about what that might look like for your children. And for those of you that are ready to have your children come back and there is excitement and the joy that school brings to lives, and you're ready to transition with us back into schools. And then there are the complexities of the racism issues that society is dealing with. And again, we are here to support, to listen, to learn, and to work alongside those of you that have been impacted. And it is something that as a society we need to address in a holistic way together. I'd like to wrap by just extending again huge gratitude, the coming together of community to thoughtfully and mindfully put plans in place for the return of students to schools is extraordinary, and I'm incredibly appreciative for all of you and your support. Thank you for your time and to listening to the video.